Hey guys, what's going on? I'm John Malecki, and in this video I make a double duty table saw sled. This thing does cross cuts as well as miter cuts, and you don't need a jig. Check it out.
For this build, I needed a new crosscut sled. I'm working on a desk project with a bunch of small parts, and I didn't want to use the sled I made 4 years ago for my old table saw. So I start by cutting the base to size, and for this I'm using 3/4 MDF. I'm making my sled 20 inches wide and 16 inches deep. I then cut the runner out of purple heart because it's extremely dense, and I rip it on the table saw, and then I clean it up on my bench with a block pane just to get it a nice tight fit in the miter slot. I put the runner in the miter slot, and then I measure the distance from the blade to the runner, and I leave a little overhang so I can cut the miter. Problem is, my table saw tilts the other way, so I'm an idiot, but fortunately for me, the blade is centered and equidistant from both miter slots in my saw, so it ended up working out regardless. I then mark the center line for where the runner will be attached, and I use a countersink from the top in order to make sure all of the screws I use for attaching will be nice and flush. I put a dab of CA glue on the bottom of the sled just to hold the miter runner slightly while I get it flipped over and I know it's not moving around. I then attach it with screws that I screw in by hand with a screwdriver so I don't strip them out. I tilt the miter to 45 degrees, I put it in the slot and run it through the table saw to give me my edge. I then mark where the front and back fences will be on the bottom and drill through with a standard bit on my drill, and then I countersink those same screws from the bottom. I then attach the back of the sled first. I start on one side, I clamp it down, and I use 1¼ inch screws to attach it. I do not use any glue just in case I need to do adjustments down the line. I then put it in the table saw and attach the front fence, which is a little beefier. I start on one side and add a screw, and then I add another screw all the way on the opposite side. This is for the test cut that I'm doing here. Once I cut a piece of whatever wood I'm using, I can measure the square, and if it's out by any means, I can adjust it on the opposite side and use the other end as a pivot point on the back fence. Fortunately for me, this cut came out almost perfect and needed no adjustment at all. It's going to be great for the uses I need it for. I also test a miter cut just to make sure everything's aligned there, and then I flip the whole sled over, I cut the runner down to its final size, and once it is done, I put on a coat of paste wax just so it slides nice and smooth over the table saw, and I finish it up with a little bit of shellac to give it a protective coat while it sits in the shop.
So this build, as you see, is super simple and easy, great way to use up some scrap wood, and it has a double duty function, which is great. I've been reading a book from Matt Kenny, which is 52 boxes in 52 weeks, and he uses a sled just like this to make his boxes. If you want to link to that book, it's fantastic. I left one down below for you. Make sure you check it out. Fantastic if you're working on getting better at small projects. Also, I've got a free plan to download. Make sure you're clicking that link in the description. This thing went together in less than a half hour, and if you want to build one yourself, it has cuts lists and parts lists and everything you'll need in there. I want to thank my sponsor for this video, Timberland Pro. As you guys know, I love Timberland Pro. They are my go-to workwear and footwear for any and every single day in the shop. If you want to see the stuff that I'm wearing on a daily basis, make sure you're clicking that link in the description below. If you support my sponsors, you support me, and that helps me make more content for you guys. Lastly, if you want to see a full write-up on this build, make sure you're checking out my blog at johnmalecki.com, where I will have detailed instructions and photographs, as well as that free plan for you to download. You guys, one more time for tuning in. Go punch your next project in the face, and I'll see you on the next video.